Today is 29th of April, and it's the third episode in our talk show series as we look into the Yoruba belief system, a journey to understanding. I'm Hrh Princess Moradeun Adedoyin-Solarin, the producer, researcher, and host of the show. And today, again, I have our special guest, Iyanifa Bola Ogundare Eleagu, who is a British-born Yoruba descent, Nigerian, a UK-trained lawyer, an Ifa initiate and priestess, a spiritual healer, a qualified herbal practitioner, a diviner, a seer, a human rights activist, a social commentator, a child of the universe, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a sister, and a friend. So I'll hand over to the studios. I hope you've all logged in. I hope you have all your questions ready because, as you know, with our pattern, once we do the 1 hour of the actual conversation, then we'll bring our guest in again to go through the question and answer session. So I'm going to hand over now to the studio as we warmly welcome and bring in our special guest. Don't go away, stay tuned. Yes. Aboru for you. Welcome. Oh wow, Iyanifa is looking super duper gorgeous this evening.
Thank you. I'm following in your footsteps.
Okay, we'll see who's going to catch up with who. But on a serious note, you're warmly welcome. Thank you so much for always just making yourself available to be with us, to share with a vast of knowledge that you have also had the opportunity to pick up along the way in this your long journey, working as an Ifa devotee and of course a priestess. Today, as always, we would like us to first open up with Iwuri, prayers, but we Yorubas call it Iwuri. And then that will set the pace for us to go ahead. So over to you, ma.
Thank you so much. So what I said is homage is what we pay first. We first pay homage before we do anything else. So again, I go back to my native language and then go back into English. Iba Eledumare, Iba Koda, Iba Láàánú Òkìrìkù, Ibẹ̀yìn ìyá mi òfìlò ọ̀pàkí, ọ̀làkí, alágogo jẹ, ajókòó lórí odó, parẹ́mọ́dó, ìbà wọn. Ìbà Ifá olókun asọ̀rọ̀dayọ̀ ẹlẹ́rìí ìpín àtòrẹ́ni tí ò sunwọ̀n ṣe. Ìbà Ifá olókun asọ̀rọ̀dayọ̀, ìbà Ọ̀ṣun ọ̀ṣẹ̀gẹ̀ṣẹ́, ìyá mi ládékojú ẹbra tí ń gbé nínú omi. Ó wáyọ̀rìn kówó sí kọ̀ṣọ́ má ṣe wáyọ̀rìn kówó tiwa sí kókówó tiwa lé wa lọ́wọ́. Ìbà ìmọ̀tàṣà ìyá mi gbàlùbọ́sà kò fi ròfó iye mọ́jayé. Ìbà òòṣà ńlá ọ̀ṣẹ̀rẹ̀ màgbò, bàbá mi tó sùn nú ẹ̀là tó jí nú ẹ̀là funfun gbòlà. Ìbà ẹni mo máa ṣe o. Ìbà ògún lákàyé olómílẹ́fẹ̀jẹ̀ ènìyàn wẹlẹ̀. Òláṣọ́lé fìmọ̀kìmọ̀ bora. Ìbà gbogbo gbagbarúmọ lójú kọ̀tún. Ìbà gbogbo gbagbarúmọ lójú kòsì. Ìbà àwọn akímọró. Ìbà àwọn tó kọ́kọ́ dáfá kí n tó dáfá. Èyí tó kọ́kọ́ tẹfá sórí pátákó fá kí n tó tẹfá. Ìbà bàbá, ìbà yèyé, ìbà onílé, ìbà àlejò, ìbà ọkùnrin, ìbà obìnrin, ìbà ọmọdé, ìbà òrìṣàlẹ̀ bàbá ẹni, ìbà òrìṣàlẹ̀ ìyá ẹni o, ìbà òrìṣà ọjà. Mo wá ṣèbà yín báyìí kẹ́ jẹ́ kí bà mí kó wá ṣẹ. Wọ́n ní ẹni tó wọlé tí ò kágò òun ló dẹrùn àmúso. Ǹjẹ́ èmi wọlé báyìí mo kágò, ẹ má ṣe jẹ́ dẹrùn àmúso. Gbogbo ìtàn wá fẹ́ lé ní báyìí kẹ́ jẹ́ kó wá jú wá ṣe. Ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ṣílẹ̀kùn ayé lé ní báyìí kẹ́ jẹ́ kó jú wá ṣe. Ẹ̀yin tẹ́ má ṣílẹ̀kùn ayé lọ́jọ́ tó ní báyìí kẹ́ jẹ́ kó jú wá ṣe. Ẹ má ṣe jẹ́ àṣìṣe ká má ṣe báláyé fọwọ́ sí. Gbogbo tá bá wá fẹ́ ṣe báyìí ire ni kó bọ́ sí. Torí wọ́n ní níre báyìí là ń wí tatare. Ara kì í natare bẹ́ẹ̀ ni kì í ní gbòòrí. ìkínepo àròní ni wá àtúbà túnṣe fún wa báyìí korogodo láyé ò nílù fún wa jó àwa wà lórí ìrìn àjò yìí bá Ifá olókun àsọdọ̀ àwa máa ṣègbè lẹ́yìn wa gbogbo ètí mo fẹ́ ní báyìí àrò mo ti rí bò ṣiṣẹ́ fẹ́ o.
For our people who are from the Americas and the Caribbean.
I'm about to change it now.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I greet you all. I pay homage to everything in existence. I pay homage to Eledumare, who we would be talking about in his infinite mercy, the whole creator of the universe, from whom the Irumales come, and out of that, the Orishas. I pay homage. I pay homage to Eshu, who is, you know, English words don't do justice, but I'll come back to that. Like, kind of like the trickster, the Lord, the deity of the crossroads, and so many other things. He is, in his own right, an Irumales of Ajay, which is about world success and accomplishment. A lot of people tend to just associate Ajay to wealth, but it's more than that. I pay homage to Ifa, who is the silent witness to every single destiny. I pay homage to Iyami, the mothers of mystery, whom are seated, and I'll come back to it, on the right hand of Eledumare, with whom I've been given so much authority over life that we may never encounter their wrath, but their peace and goodness in our lives. I pay homage to Oshun, my mother of the sweet waters, but she can be otherwise. I won't get into that tonight. I pay homage to her. She owns the mirror. She owns beauty. She owns divinity, but she also owns anger. It knows where you knows her from. So I pay homage to all the Irumoles on the right and all the Orumoles on the left. I pay homage to our fathers, our mothers. Without, you know, they are through the source and the portal that we are here today. Without them, good, bad, or indifferent, whoever your parents are, you want to be here on this plane. Because it takes that combination for us to be here. So I pay homage. I pay homage to men, to women, to children, to elders, to the witches, the wizards of this world, and to everything that is in existence to make this portal possible. That which we are doing today will prosper us. That which we are doing today will be able to teach ourselves and elevate from here, develop and never regret our combination. Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you so much. And so be it.
Ashe.
If you're just tuning in, greetings and warm welcome again as we bring you this third episode of Arize Conversations talk show series, where we are putting the spotlight on amazing thought leaders, individuals, businesses, and organizations who want to arise and make a difference. I'd like to say a big, massive thank you to our dream team, made up of Iyanifa, who's our special guest and who's one of the custodians of the knowledge of the Yoruba Belief system, and also Olabisi Obadara, alongside Isaiah and the entire management and crew. So today, our Iyanifa will be throwing some more light on a few questions that we've had lined up. The first one I'm going to pose to you, Iyanifa. What is the correct concept of Olodumare in our Yoruba belief system? Because when you were doing the Iwuri and praying, Olodumare was the first being that you paid homage to.
Sorry, I'm just kind of like fixing myself. Bear with me. So, when we talk about Olodumare, some people put the concept that Olo, which is like the owner, Dumare. Dumare can be broken down into many words. So in existence, again, when we break it down in other Ifa stanzas, Oshumare, which is the rainbow servants of conception, but also the connection between mother and child. Now, Olodumare for me, and like I always say, with all due respect, means the owner of creation, the owner of all destiny and all things infinite. So that is my, if I can put it into English, that is my kind of understanding of it. And you asked about Olodumare and who Olodumare is. To jump forward a bit, people always say to me, is Olodumare God? You know, even Yoruba people. Now, I don't look at Eleagu as being God, because when we look at God, what the colonial masters gave us and what we understand God to be, to equate Eleagu to God is to undermine the infinity, the magnificence of who Eleagu is as a creator, and much more.
Thank you so much. Next, I'm going to go into the topic of spirituality. What does it mean to be spiritual? Is it the same thing as the practice of doctrines in organized religions? Because organized religions have their own practices, doctrines, rituals. So is spirituality, because a lot of people mix both, being religious and being spiritual. Could you please just break it down to for us?
That valid question. I love that question so much. Because the reason is, I always tell people that for me, again, with all due respect, everybody's entitled to their opinion. In my experience, in my journey, in my walk, for me, religion is man's way to God, as they call it. Okay, and I'll break it down in a minute. Whereas spirituality is Eleagu's way to Eleagu. There's a big difference. So
could you explain that again?
Yeah, I'm breaking it down. So when we look at humans' way to God, how I see the concept of Eleagu, how I think, or God, how he should accept. Whereas with religion is a doctrine, is a doctrination. Spirituality is a personal experience. Let me further break it down. So I have a visitation from Oshun, for example, who's the deity of sweet waters, my mother's Oshun Shengeshe. And you have an experience of her. Religion will tell us that this is how it has to be. If your experience is not this way, then it's not real. Because it is our inherent definition of how we think we should get to the Orishas, Irumoles, or Eleagu. However, spirituality is how that Irumole Orisha chooses to visit me. It makes it a personal experience. It's how they choose to reveal themselves to me, their power, everything inherent about them, the taboos, what I should do, what I should not do, the development, that motherly, fatherly love that cannot be given to you by human beings. Or shall I say human becoming?
I would want you to please just expand a bit more on spirituality,
Okay.
so that people can actually get it.
Okay.
Because a lot of times when people hear spirituality, especially if it's linked with our Yoruba, belief system, or any other indigenous belief system, because we have various other, belief systems that are indigenous to people of, Native Americans, people in Australia, people in South Africa, the rest of Africa, Japan, etc., that they have their inherent belief systems and traditions from ancient times. Nobody bats an eyelid, even Jews, nobody bats an eyelid. But whenever it's to do with us Africans, or to do with particularly us as Yorubas, tempers start flying, and people start attaching erroneous things to it, if I can put it that way. So could you just explain to us what spirituality is really? Is it a universal thing, or is it only just to do with us Yorubas or Africans?
Okay, so as I said before, for me, spirituality transcends gender, your tribe, your DNA, whatever you want to call it. Spirituality is a personal experience. So we can both, for example, in spirituality, experience one Orisha. You're from the Caribbean, I'm from Africa, but we're all Africans to begin and to the end, which will come on to that, both me and Princess, on another session. Our experience of the Orishas would differ, doesn't make it any less valid. So for me, spirituality is deeper than being Yoruba, being Igbo, being Ghanaian, being whatever you want to call yourself as an African, an original African. It's a personal experience, one-on-one. It's a revelation of what the Irumoles, the Orishas want to reveal to you as a person based on your destiny that I might not experience. However, my own experience doesn't make yours any less valid, and vice versa.
So spirituality really is a personal walk.
Yes,
It's a personal journey.
Yes,
It's a personal pursuit, if I can put it that way,
yes.
and it's very specific to the individual.
Yes, it is. It's personal in a sense, sorry to cut you, which we'll come into in a moment about Ori. It's very personal in accordance to your Ori. The reason why a lot of people get lost for me and mix up spirituality with religion is that people are telling you, oh no, that doesn't exist. That's not in Ifa. That's not in this. That's not in that. Nobody can define your personal journey of spirituality but your Ori. Nobody can define it for you in Yoruba cosmology and tradition apart from Ifa.
So even in that, that is very synonymous to us as Yorubas, and that is why from the beginning, my own thrust was really to open up the Yoruba belief system, because Yoruba, we are very unique human beings.
Yes, we are.
When we look back in, we're going to come to the subject of Ori, but I just wanted you and I to have a conversation about this. When we look back to the transatlantic slave trade 401 years ago, as it's being referred to now, the Yorubas were the highest casualty of people that were captured and sold into slavery as cargo of beasts of burden. Very hurtful when we think about it, but as they say, it is what it is. It did happen. But why I'm referring us to that is when we look at where the Yorubas were dispersed across the world, they have managed, we're talking about 400 plus years, they have managed to keep their spirituality, they've managed to keep their tradition, keep their belief system, even though languages had changed, through the years. There've been mixture of other cultures and maybe some other beliefs, but distinctly, the Yoruba stands out anywhere we go on the face of the planet. Could you explain to us how that happened, how we were able to do that? What is maybe I can use the word power. What's the power behind that?
Okay, so let me start off with the word language. When you say in terms of alphabets, in Yoruba, as what I have learned, not just from being a Yoruba person, but just because of the interest, when you speak certain alphabets in Yoruba alone, it resonates with the earth. It almost creates binaries in the earth itself. Ile, which is Mother Earth. So when we look at, let me go back to Ifa for a moment. Ifa says, the only thing we all as creation find on this earth and will leave here is Mother Earth. We find Mother Earth here. She's older than us, and she's the only thing we will leave here. When a person passes or journeys onto another portal, they're buried into Mother Earth. She's the oldest, the strongest, the most powerful, and the whole kind of beginning and end, which, like I said, we will go on to another day. For me, to be able to, in Yoruba people as a whole, before I kind of come into the tradition, we have an inherent memory. I don't know if I'm using the right word by saying isoye. which gives us that memory, and there's like retentive
total recall
medicine about that. That seems to be inherently in our ancestors and in ourselves, which, not to put down with all due respect other tribes, but makes us solid as a people. So in learning Ifa, one of the things I learned from some of my many masters and other priests, Eleagu, bless them, that taught me, is that blood remembers. We as a Yoruba people, inherently in our DNA, which is not just rooted in the universe or the other elements, but in the soil, in Mother Earth. And when you plant something in Mother Earth, no matter how much is cut down, if you're not pulling it up from the roots, it still remains in the earth. So you can cut it from the top, it continues to grow. So for me, we have something that is inherently not just spiritual, sacred, a science, a beauty about the universe. When you look at Yoruba as a language and the words, and you take Ifa stanzas, for example, so you have Yoruba, and then you aim to translate it to English so that you can be, all accommodating, I guess. It doesn't quite translate to the same. Yoruba words, when a Yoruba person speaks the language and it hits the air, Oya, and it hits Mother Earth, Ile, and it goes back to Orisha-Oke, it has a power that just unleashes the whole portal that we're in and we know as the earth plane in a different level.
Thank you so much for breaking that down for us. Now, I'm going to allow you to please, because last week you gave all our viewers, all of us, you gave us a bit of homework, and you said we should go and do our homework and find out what is Ori, or what is our Ori. I looked through all the email, through my email messages. I didn't get anybody that could say, yes, I know what Ori is. So I believe we have to now bring the ship back to anchor it at your feet again, so that you can really, tell us what Ori is, the importance of Ori, the significance of our Ori, and why Ori is something that the Yoruba belief system holds so sacred and highly. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, Princess, thank you very much for that, Iyami. What I will say to you is I will do it as brief as I can, but I feel that Ori in itself needs a part 2. So
yes,
that's something that viewers, me and Princess will visit together for another episode. Now, when we talk about Ori, what does Ori translate to? It means the head. But Ori for us in Yoruba, spirituality, cosmology, ancient traditions, doesn't just mean your head as it is on your neck. But Ori is the most supreme being, the inner being that connects the chambers of success and failure. A lot of people talk about Ori as being, people said, I should do my Ori, so appreciate my Ori. What does that really mean? In Ifa, it is said that Ori la ba boka forisha sílẹ̀. Níbo ni òrìṣà wà nígbà tí orí ń gbé ní? Orí odídẹrẹ́ ló gbére pàdé odídẹrẹ́. Ṣé bí orí àlùkò ló gbére pàdé àlùkò? Orí mi kò rí, wọ́n níbi olórí gbérí. Ìbálẹ̀ yan tèmi o, ibi àfùwà pé yan rí o, ìbálẹ̀ yan tèmi. Wọ́n níbi kan láti gbé yan rí. Kádàrá ò papọ̀ ni o, ibì kan láti gbé yan rí o, ìwà ò papọ̀ ni. So let me see if I can do the same justice in English, bear with me. So in terms of our Ori, going back to front, it is said for Afuakwe, so let me just tell you the brief story. So there are 3 people and they are going to choose their destiny before the witness of destiny. And it is said that they should offer Ebo, the sacrifice, so that they can choose the right Ori. Afuakwe was the only one that stayed behind and did the Ebo and complied with the instructions. The rest of them went, they passed through the same thing. And in the end, Afuakwe was the only one that chose the Ori of not just good destiny, success, accomplishment, long life, good health, and all the Ire, which means blessings of this world. The rest started singing, I wish I knew where Afuakwe chose his destiny. I would have done the same. Afuakwe responded, we choose our destiny from the same place. Our characters are different. Our origins are different. The song that I sang at the beginning, which I didn't fully go into, it says that if I had known where the destiny owner chooses his destiny, I would have done the same. Now, what Ifa is saying to us there, it says, we should propitiate our Oris and leave the Orisha. That is not to disrespect the Orisha, but it's just a saying that where were the Orishas when Ori, the very first Orisha, was blessing us? Where were the Orishas? There is none in this world, in this whole universe, cosmology, name it anywhere. We can have this talk that can bless you without the permission of your Ori, because your Ori is the most supreme being. Your Ori is not just as it sits on your neck, but your Ori is the blessed to give you all things. When we look at Ori, okay, so let's go from the so-called scientists of this world. When you look at Ori as a student, you have what's known as mind map, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Inside the brain is so many different maps that are sketched out. The bit that holds the retentive memory, the bits that holds loss, and different things. That's one. Again, has anybody ever experienced that in so-called science, we are told that your Ori, your brain, is the only thing that things can enter without your permission, especially the left side of your brain. Now, going back to so-called science, when a person has a stroke, your left hand is your power side, and that's what goes down. Why is it that us as human beings, or shall I say, I like to say human becomers, which I'll explain on another episode, sometimes you'll be singing a song and you'll be like, I really hate that song. Why am I singing it? A song can enter your head from you hearing it, enter your Ori without your permission from the left side of your body. So it shows us how powerful and synonymous Ori is in relation to the rest of our body. That doesn't make the rest of our body any less relevant. But when we look at our Ori and when we look at alignment, when people have a surgery, for example, I'm just kind of jumping a bit, but I will explain it a bit more, so bear with me. When somebody has a surgery, they give you an anesthesia, it goes through your body. It is your brain that has to send the waves to the rest of your body. Time to move your arm, time to move your leg, time for the blood to pump, time for this. So it shows us how powerful Ori is in the whole essence of everything else.
So, thank you so much. So you were saying something about anesthesia now. So when we're given anesthesia in hospital prior to surgeries, are you saying that the anesthesia goes first to the brain?
Okay, so what happens with the anesthesia?
Or to the head?
The diagram for the next show. So you put the anesthesia, say for example, through somebody's arm, it shoots all the way up, goes through to their heart. It cannot go down unless it goes to the brain.
First.
Right, so it has to go to the brain first. That's why when you see someone is in a coma, they say, read them stories, talk to them, remind them of things, say things, because their brain will eventually remember. Now, this is of Ori.
This is mind-blowing, Iyanifa. So is that why sometimes doctors say, oh, that person is brain dead?
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
And it's
amazing. So the brain or our Ori is very powerful indeed.
Belief that we can do any bori, which will come on to another day, which is the propitiation of Ori. And if we are out of kilter, like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening with my job, my family, what's going on with me, you can use your Ori to realign the whole of yourself. Your Ori, which is your head chakra in a way in terms of Kemet, align it with your Ori Nu, which is your navel. Again, go to your Ikule, go to your Ese, and align your whole body ready for recharge.
Wow, this is amazing, because basically what you're sharing with us today, these are things that we've also learned in, as I told you last time, other master classes that people from the Western world do, and they call it different names.
Yes.
You understand, transformational, all sorts of names, but the principles are exactly the same.
Yes, they are.
The principles are exactly the same. They talk about, the chakra, the head. They talk about, the brain. And that saying that nobody can steal your joy unless you give them express permission.
You have to give them, it's not even express permission for me, Yami. You have to give that power over. In order for you to steal my joy, you have to matter. I have to be able to bring you into that very chamber of my Ori for you to be able to penetrate me.
Because so what happens? I get that. So what happens? I'm trying to flip the coin now. What happens with people that suddenly have mental health problems or challenges?
So
did they at some point in their lives just give up and allow other forces to enter their Ori?
Okay, this is a subject matter that is very, very important to me. And I believe, we have to do a whole show on this. Not just to talk about mental health and what it looks like in terms of tradition and Ifa and our cosmology as Yoruba people, but also to understand that there are many things that are misinterpreted as mental health, and there are many things that are mental health but are, unfortunately, told that it's a spiritual attack. So this, a lot of times as well, is not allowing people to get the treatments and the remedies that they have.
So basically, you're explaining to us that there's a lot of mix up, as our Caribbean brothers and sisters would say.
Definite, and teach each other about what is and what is not, and what are the signs, though the list is not exhaustive. So when you talk about mental health, there are times that a person will have a mental breakdown, because again, I don't believe in the whole mental health thing. I'm a big one on the use of words and language. Do excuse me, because words mean things. We have to think, do we have the permission to use the word that we're using, and what kind of a share we're releasing by saying certain things or over certain people's lives? Do we have that inherent a share or permission? So again, in terms of people having a mental
breakdown,
and stuff like that, because I'd rather use that word, it can happen. There was a book that I read once ago called Willow Weep for Me. Now, this is a book which next week I'll try to get, and though I'm away at the moment, and bring online so you can see a copy of it. It's by Nana Ama, who is a Ghanaian author. And the reason why I like this book is it talks about you have billion-dollar Black women running organizations, and I'm sorry guys to just focus it on women, but I'm just talking about the book. And the system tells you that when you're taking Prozac, a form of really high antidepressant, and still operating, you're doing well. Depression and certain things and mental health and different elements of mental health, it's almost as though it's not allowed in our society. As a people, as an African people, we don't feel it's something that is hugely stigmatized against. So when we look at mental health, for me, okay, let me quickly go back to Ifa. There are times when mental health can manifest in a way of somebody that is being put to do a certain thing within Orisha, but is resisting it. not just resisting it, but living a lifestyle and a life that is actually opposite to who they are, their destiny. So that's one. Secondly, for me, in terms of mental health, there can just be, you know, we all have this in terms of our cerebrum and our brain and the organs that are sent to our brain from our ori to the rest of our body, that we go through loss, trauma, different psychological factors, that person just has a meltdown. Every single human being and human becoming, if it shows us, has to have a meltdown at one point or another. It's all in the order of life itself. So we cannot, sorry guys, just bear with me 1 second, literally. I'm sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, we usually pull Iyanifa out of her work because she's in her office, she's working, she consults. So sometimes, you know, her phone will go off. So what we do is on Thursdays, we just beg her to give us an hour and a half from her very busy schedule. So over to you, ma'am.
I'm so sorry, I forgot to take the phone off the hook.
No worries at all. We understand that you're busy. Work is work.
Yeah, me for explaining that. So for me, in terms of, you know, mental health and what it is, there are psychological triggers that can cause a person to have a mental breakdown. The loss of a loved one, you know, giving birth to children, having your first child, buying your first houses, loss of a job, so many things that can act as triggers. But it's very important for me for us to treat this topic, Iyami, to actually define clearly what are mental health breakdown factors in terms of spiritual, physical, and otherwise. Because quite often, especially in Nigeria, a lot of people that have mental health, I have experienced as an Onisheshe, as a traditionalist, that they're not properly treated. People sort of say,
everything is always pinned on village people. The village people are after us.
Yeah, you know, sending you all these negative forces and whatever. And sometimes it's just a matter of someone has suffered a loss. They're not really healing from it. There is no therapeutic input. There is no support. And the person just gets to a place where it's like it all gets too much. But they'll blame it on something spiritual. So again, we have to really be very clear what are the kind of factors and signs we need to look for. You know, mental health is mental health, whether it's spiritual, emotionally, physical, or otherwise, or other factors that triggered it.
Thank you so much. It's amazing that you know, we're able to actually discuss from the issue of Ori. We're just talking about Ori, and then we now see that even the state of our mental health is also both clinically and spiritually attached to it. Very strongly attached to that. I also know that, and please, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but from growing up, listening to my grandmother, the Queen, listening to my dad, you know, my father was very educated, but he was also, you know, he was a prince, so he was very traditional, and he understood, you know, the ways of our people, our belief system. And when they're talking about people that have had a meltdown, as you called it, you know, or breakdown, he also used to say what you said, that it's not all the time that is a spiritual attack. And then he will tell us about how it used to be handled back in the day. So what happened to us? How come suddenly anything, any little thing that happens, we quickly attach it to somebody somewhere jazzing us, as it were? We're not saying that doesn't exist, but
yeah,
why has that just totally taken over? And therefore, the sacred sciences that we know that we have as a people, as Yorubas, is thrown away out of the window.
So let's go back to colonialism. Let's go back to slave trade, just very briefly. Slave trade colonialism for me is all about Give me your trumpets and I will give you mine. We have been demoralized. We have been depowered. We have been every single thing that you can think of as a people. That is why Ifa says, so other people's traditions, cultures is what seems good to us. When you look at, and I don't even like to use the word Nigeria because again, that's a fallacy, but so the word Nigeria, we are so westernized more than the Western people, which for me is I'm sorry to say, with all due respect, an infinite madness in itself. That we believe that almost like we are taught or indoctrinated to the point that the white man is like God. Have you ever experienced where you are talking to another person, your brother, your sister, they see a white man appear and they leave you even without, oh, excuse me. It's as though God in itself, as they put it,
has arrived.
It's really sad. And so when we look at where we find ourselves as the people, once we don't understand a people whose tradition are taken away, their very soul becomes extinct. So therefore, when we think about the soul, without kind of detracting from the subject, it has our memory back.
Your consciousness.
Our pride, who we are, our spiritual, is all buried and depth in our soul. So when our tradition is taken from us and we're told that we're lesser of a people and we need to be subjected to other people's ideology, our very soul is killed. Our memory bank, our DNA, everything that we are, that let us understand that we are gods and goddesses within our own right, is taken away. We are disempowered.
That's why I believe that Yorubas will have a saying, and I think one of our artists made it into a song. Maja walaye gẹ́gẹ́ bí aláìsí láyé. Maja walaye gẹ́gẹ́ bí aláìsí. So basically, we don't want to just, like the first day, what you said is we must not exist. We must live.
Exactly.
Because when what is yours has been taken away, in other words, your ori has been tampered with, you're no longer living.
Exactly.
You might be alive, you might be breathing.
It's worse than that. You have people that are living, you have people that are existing, and you have people that are coexisting.
That are what?
You have people that are living,
yes,
people that are existing, and people that are coexisting.
Coexisting. What could you? I know I can understand living. I can understand existing. Which one is coexisting, please?
So let me just explain in the words of Ifa.
Enlighten us.
I'm not going to go through the whole audio. Ifa said, Ajonri Mori Olowo, Ajonri Mori Olola, Ajonri Mori Onire Gbogbo. So you and I, we are acquaintances, we are friends. We go together through life. We don't know the heads of riches. We don't know the heads of success. We don't know who will become the most prominent. We don't know who will become the most diminished. So when you coexist, in Yoruba, my people always say, Maje kori mi segbe wale aye. Maje wale aye wa woran. Stanza. I won't break down the whole stanza because again it's long.
I don't want to come to the world and become a spectator.
Ọ̀rúnmìlà ń lọ lọ́nà, ó pàdé àwọn ọmọ ẹyẹ, wọ́n dúró ṣòǹgìrò, wọ́n dúró ṣòǹgìrì. Wọ́n wá ń sunkún Ọ̀rúnmìlà, lèmi ló ṣe yín tẹ́ ẹ ṣe ń sunkún. Wọ́n ní bàbá Elédùmarè ò ṣayére, wọ́n ló dá gbogbo ẹyẹ, ó fi ọ̀kín, ó fi ṣòro dé àwọn ẹyẹ. Ṣáwọn ẹyẹ tó kù ṣáwọn ṣorí gbé wálé ayé. Bàbá níṣe lẹ́yìn ò gbọ́n, ìṣe lẹ́yìn ò mọ̀. Ẹ̀yin ò mọ̀ pórí kan wálé ayé, ó ṣẹgbẹ́ wálé ayé. Ẹ̀yin ò mọ̀ pórí kan wálé ayé, ṣe nìyẹn wá wòran. Elédùmarè kórí mi wálé ayé wá wòran. Má jẹ́ kórí mi kó délé ayé, kó ṣẹgbẹ́ wálé ayé. wọ́n ní pé adífá fún Ọ̀rúnmìlà bàbá ń lọ lọ́nà ó pàdé àwọn ọmọ eku wọ́n dúró ṣòǹgìrò wọ́n dúró ṣòǹgìrò wọ́n bú sẹ́kún bàbá lèmi ló mú yín tẹ́ fi ń sunkún wọ́n lélẹ́dùmarè ò ṣayére wọ́n ló dá gbogbo ẹyẹ sórí ó dá gbogbo eku sílé ayé ó wá fi sòròfin ló fi ṣe lórí àwọn ṣé gbogbo àwọn tó ẹyẹ eku tó kù sáwọn sórí gbé wálé ayé bàbá níṣẹ́ lẹ́yìn ò gbọ́n ìṣe lẹ́yìn ò mọ̀ ẹ̀yin ò mọ̀ pé orí kan wálé ayé ó sẹ́gbẹ́ wálé ayé ni ẹ̀yin ò mọ̀ wípé orí kan wálé ayé ṣe nìyẹn wá wòran. I've taken it from the middle of the Odu, and I'm sorry to do that because it's long and I'm just looking at time. So this in English back to you guys for my brothers and my sisters who don't understand the Yoruba language. Ọ̀rúnmìlà, Aṣíwájú wa jùlọ, our leader and most trusted and respected and first student, was going along the journey of Orun, which again, I don't like to use the word heaven, but we'll come to that on a different episode. So Aye, this earth plane. And he bucked up upon the birds. He asked them, they were standing still, but very sad and crying. Baba Ọ̀rúnmìlà asked them, what is wrong with you? Why do you weep? They say, because Eledumare did not do justice to this plane. And he says, why do you say so? They said, because Eledumare created all birds, but made the peacock our head. The rest of us birds, do we have the wrong Ori? What is wrong with us? Could we not be finding to be leaders? Ọ̀rúnmìlà said, you do not know, you have no wisdom. Some Ori come into this world to be merely spectators. Some Oris come into this world to accompany their mates into this world. May our Ori never be spectators or accompany us into this world. So again, back to the question. Sorry, Yami, to kind of explain it that way, but I like to break things down.
It's very good because we need to learn. Thank you.
We need to understand that when you coexist, you are merely but a spectator in this earth. You do all things, beginning, never see the accomplishment. You can never point to what it is that you have achieved as a human becoming. And again, I'm sorry, the next episode I will explain why I use the word human becoming rather than human beings. Because we are a process of development, always.
So we're becoming.
We're always evolving. So, and without that, we can never really truly reach destiny. So that is why I use the word human becoming rather than human beings. For me, what we need to do in war against all of us is for our Ori not to be spectators. Some people will come into this world and they're like, why is it no matter how hard I try to thrive, no matter how much things I'm trying to achieve, I'm always below my peers. I'm always at the subjugation of my peers. I always have to wait for others for me to be somebody. There are many Odufa, some that say, people say that you cannot re-choose your destiny. That what we kneel in Orun to choose as our destiny, we get to this earth plane and we're like, oh, when did I choose that? I don't actually like that. And we're all in a hurry to make it. However, it's just like, sorry to detract Yami, when we talk about marriage, when we talk about so many things, some mothers will say, I want to at your age, as or masters or PhD, or so meaning some mothers will turn around, they will say, you this child, look at your age, you're supposed to be married, you're supposed to be this. That puts a lot of pressure on people. Again, it goes back into our Yoruba spirituality. A lot of people have committed suicide for such brief, what seems like brief statements. But we have to realize that if my Ori is different from Princess, and even your Ori is different from your children, different from your husband, Taya and Kehinde twins, their Ori are different inherently, then we cannot compare. The time you will succeed is different from the time I will succeed. Because it's about my Akuleyon.
So that Akuleyon, Iyanifa, so basically, I want to understand this, and I'm sure our viewers probably are in agreement with me. So we choose How come we don't have recollection of that choosing?
Okay, so when you look at we look at Ifá, we say Ifá Olókun Asọ̀rọ̀dayọ̀, ẹlẹ́rìí ìpín,
Witness.
the witness to the choosing of our destiny, the one that repairs the ori that is not, I don't like to use the word negative, but not so full and needs to be repaired.
So it's so, thank God you said that.
The three phases, and then we look at Obatala, Oshanla, the king of white cloth, who is the molder of creation. So there are those three phases. There's more than that, but I'm just choosing those three phases. So when we look at Ifá as Eleripi, the silent witness, because, okay, let me give you an example. When someone is in a coma, we go back to orient the brain, something inherently in them, words, names, books, different things, stories, can trigger the cerebrum in the brain to come back and reawaken.
Absolutely.
But the ori cannot remember by itself, scientifically. But Ifá, this is why we all are inherently, whether we like it or not, go back to Ifá in terms of our tradition. Ifá is that silent witness that watches, sees everything, knows the memory bank. Is like that our DNA that knows what you chose, what I chose. And so therefore it is through Ifá that we are reminded of who we are, what we chose.
But we can also, as you said, we can also repair. For instance, if somebody chose wrongly, maybe I shouldn't even use that word. Maybe somebody mischose. So when they now become aware of the principles of life and the principles of our belief system, there is a way that a repair can be done.
Okay, so I will explain that. There are some ways, like, for example, going back to Oduifa that we were talking about last week. So we have 256 different Odus, you know, combination, 16 majors. So again, I'm sure we'll visit on another episode again in more detail. But when we look at Oduifa, there are some Odus that Babalawo or Iyanifa will do a dafa for someone and it will say, this person is blaming other people for their loss and their, you know, all the negativity that's happened. But it's actually their own chosen, you know,
wow.
their oris, their destiny that needs to be repaired. So
wow.
Apart you need to take this person to a river. I'm just giving an example. Do an iweri, which you wash away the negativity into the river to flow with it. You come back, you do the ibori, but you know the process is a bit more lengthier than that. But I'm just cutting through it to repair that person's ori, to repair the very things that this person has chosen that is not in sync to allow them to achieve their destiny.
No, so it's beginning to sink in. Thank you so much for the patience you've had to break that down. It's beginning to sink into all of us now that indeed, as you described to us, Ifa or our own way of life is sacred science.
Yes,
because everything we've been talking about nearly an hour to now, you've been aligning it with science, but our own science. Yeah. So we've had our sacred sciences, and therefore it's just like if there's an ailment, there would always be an antidote,
yes,
or something to enable it.
Why we call it the sacred science. When you have science, like for somebody who is a clinical herbalist, just coming from that perspective, you know, when you look at orthodox medicine, you go in and, you know, they look at your blood type or maybe some other things and they prescribe. When you look at our sacred science in terms of prescription, as a herbalist, you look at somebody's blood type, you look at their weight, you look at lifestyle, you look at, you know, so many things.
Everything.
Before you can even prescribe. So when you look at orthodox medicine versus, and I'm not just saying this, I can prove this. Anybody else who's a, you know, an orthodox, you know, doctor, come along. Let's have this chat. You know, you have to weigh up more as a herbalist than an orthodox doctor. Your liabilities as a herbalist are greater than a medical doctor, but we're all doctors, but in different format.
Thank you, ma'am. One of our viewers said, about 2 or 3 have actually asked, is Ori the same as Eleda?
Okay, so all right, let me go into it. Ori Eleda Atara Kashola. Agbeni Mapada Lenye. That's where I went in before to say Ori Odidere ló gbére pàdé Odidere. Ori àlùkò ló gbére pàdé àlùkò. Ori mi má ṣe gbére fólókun mọ́. Èmi lágbájá ọmọ lágbájá ni kó o máa gbére rẹ fún. So I'll cut it there. So when they talk about Eleda, Eleda is your destiny, your Ori. But it's more than that. It's your supreme being. And when I say Agbeni Mapada Lenye, the one that accompanies you from Oro to Aye, never leaves you, never deserts you. Then we talk about, when we look at things like the African grey parrot, which we won't go into today because that's other Odus and a bit more complex as well, a bigger topic. There are significance of certain birds and things in the element with Ifa and our cosmology and Yoruba as a spirituality. So, and our traditions as a whole. So, they say it is the great parrot, is the Ori of the great parrot that gives all Ire to the great parrot, the African great parrot. It is the Ori of, sorry, I'm trying to find the English word Odidere. So it's a different type of bird. It is the Ori, all the powers of its Ori that gives it Ire. So when you look at a bird, again, going into our sacred sciences, the Yoruba people and Ifa, when a bird flies, it goes with the height and the width of the wind, which is an element, again, which is governed by a particular Orisha. Again, we'll do that another day, but just to give the basis of it. When it flies, nothing can touch it, nothing can stop it. It soars, and when you look at an eagle, it goes like this, and it soars up. And nothing can stop it, but its very eyes can see the whole 4 corners of the universe. But when we talk about the eagle, it also has a relevance for us. It's just like when we sing a song in Ifa, we said, Bao Riku, Ao Bono Shebo, Bao Rakalao, A Bono Shoro. So, like, all these birds, all these things in element, they have a basis for Ifa. They have a basis for, there's nothing, it's like someone came to my house one day and they were like, Iyanifa, I want to throw this bottle away. And I was like, in the house of a Babalawo Iyanifa, there's no such thing as a gotil or relevant to, you don't throw anything away from my house.
So we are the real custodians of recycling.
Yes, we are. Because there is nothing that you will touch in a priest or priestess house that they cannot sit down with enough knowledge and explain to you that is relevant and how it's relevant. So there's nothing that is junk. Even when we look at what the so-called, Western world are doing with recycling, we as Yoruba people have been doing this times immemorial. That's why I say to people, there is nothing that Ifa, our spiritual system, does not have an inherent perspective about. Name it sex, children, child raising, child birthing, child conception, life, death, marriage, education, everything, you name it.
Thank you so much. So I hope our viewers have, so we can say that Eleda is part of your Ori.
Yes, it's part of your destiny.
Is part of your Ori. So now I'm going to bring us back home to what is happening. There's some things that are happening in Nigeria, our home country. We recently heard and read in the news that a Yoruba monarch was arrested and detained by the police for crimes he had allegedly committed. There has been a lot of outcry both for and against this incident, back at home and also abroad. I'm sure you are familiar with that particular incident. I think it happened in Ogun State. So what is your take on this? Can a monarch, can somebody just come and arrest Queen Elizabeth? saying that she committed a crime, and then take off her clothes and put her in shackles.
Let's look at Queen Elizabeth, you know, as a lawyer trained in the UK. When they tell you that there is a case against the crown, any of my learned colleagues that would take it, please come on board. Comment, let me see you. Because the monarch is above all. You know, they say no one's above the law, but it's, excuse my language, absolute bollocks. But let's take the issue of Dodi Fayed, Al Fayed. He was a person that established Harrods. You know, I don't want to go into the background bit.
He bought over Harrods, yes.
So he did all the things he did, and even though, because he wanted to fight the monarch, they showed him who the monarch is. What is the power of the monarch over the whole establishment and everything else? He never even got a British passport. Can we say that he didn't succeed? He had succeeded in what we as human beings or human becoming call success of a human being, being able to attain certain things. But they still showed him that the monarch is always above all things. So let me come back to the Yoruba system. It says, Oba lo balori ohun gbogbo. A king is absolute on all things. Back in the days when I was learning Ifa, they will always tell me, my masters, which I'm grateful for all of them, may Ledumare continue to bless them and Ifa bless them all, that when you are doing a dafa and people in front of you, you don't get up from doing a dafa. You do that and you complete it. But if an Oba sends for you, a king, a true king, because again, in this day and age, that's another topic we have to treat. There are kings and there are kings. There are supermarket kings. Kings who are crown rulers. There are differences. So, you know, when you are doing a dafa as a priest or priestess and a king sends for you with a staff, you have to do certain things and you get up from that. Why? Because wani olon dafa obape olon dafa ati wa asifa taloni.
I remember you said that to me earlier when I was saying, you know, we're talking about, and you said, you know, as far as you're concerned, even though I'm a granddaughter of the king, I'm still seen as representing the crown, and therefore, if I called on you to do something, you've got to leave whatever it is that you're doing and heed my call.
The staff of the king that the king sends to call the priest and the people, you are a representation of that staff. You are that Oba Ashe Oba. So when you send for me, it is as good as me having that staff of the king before me. Because you will have your subjects to say, Princess Moradeun calls your attention. So therefore, the king calls my attention. And if we say Oba Balori Ongogo, that the monarch is the absolute overall, then when you are a traditional ruler of that lineage, again, not Oba Supermarkets, I'm sorry, we don't. I have to stand up from my stance to answer your call. Because that which you summons is not me, but you summons Ifa as your wisdom.
Thank you. So this situation with this Oba in Nigeria, for instance, that was arrested and put in shackles in a police station. What's your take on that?
Okay, so you know, there's a lot of much ado, as they like to say. My take on it is that there are Ifa stanzas that says a true Babalawo Iyanifa should never fear the thunderstorm. The thunderstorm should never be able, you should never be able to be struck by lightning bolts if you are a true priest or priestess. There are some things, don't get me wrong, there will be challenges in life, but there are some things that should never happen to a king, certain subjects. Though when we look at Orunmila, our leader in terms of Ifa, a lot happened to him and he had to go through a lot to teach us a lot, to know how to handle certain things. It's just like the issue of Egungun, sorry to kind of jump over because it's all relevant. When we look at masquerade, There are masquerades that we'll be told the police beat up and they did stuff and nothing happened. There'll be a masquerade that is a real masquerade that the police will do that to, and we hear 3 deaths in the next 24 hours.
Wow.
Because Ifa says, Babalawo bodo shiwolu egun. Egun bodo shiwolu babalawo.
So, emi gbọ́dọ̀ tẹríba fẹ́mi.
Exactly. So when you say that you're a real Oba, don't get me wrong, that is not to say that things will not happen to that person, but there are certain things that are unbecoming that should never be heard of before a king. And if it happens, the spirits of all the Irumoles and Orisha are miluyentity.
Absolutely. It reminds me of when I think my grandfather is one of the last bastions of the real ancient kings. Yeah. One of them. There are many of them, but he was one of them. And I remember reading about what he had to do when the British were trying to put Remo Kingdom, not even trying, they had put Remo Kingdom under Ijebu. They lumped all of us together. A lot of people make the mistake and they keep referring to Remo people as Ijebus. But we're not. We're brothers and sisters with them, but we're different. The Ijebus are different. They are Merenji Logun. Yeah. We Remos, we are Metale Logbon. So we have 33 towns and more now under us. And therefore,
which shows the superiority without a doubt. But this is why, again, we need to have our history, not history, history. We have to define our own narratives. We have to keep allowing. We have a huge history, and we have to teach that to our children and our children's children in order for them to know who they are. In order for them not to be fooled, we have to bring our story. Nobody can write our narratives but us.
Absolutely. I'm very happy that you said that, because what I was trying to share quickly is, there's nothing like when you share real life stories, like what you share with us is things that you've learned along the way. Yeah. Myself, things that I've learned, but also things that I've read from, historical accounts of what happened in Remo Kingdom, whereby my grandfather, he became a king at age 29. And at some point he realized that, why would another town or another kingdom be put above us, and we're supposed to be under them, because the Western world, because the British wanted to have an easier way of ruling and just dealing with just one control. And people might go and check what is called the Martindale Commission. That was my grandfather. He stood his ground and he fought it for maybe quite a number of years, 2-3 years. And eventually the British, the king at the time, I think the present queen's dad, had to apologize, and they had to allow each of the kingdoms to go their separate ways.
Sorry, that was just me showing you I'm still in Nigeria. The light went off for a moment. Sorry. Sincere apologies, but hey.
Sorry, no problem at all. It's part of the things that we're also trying to work on, so that people can wake up and do what they need to do. This was the king. My grandfather was the king, that he did what he needed to do for his people. And therefore, you were talking about teaching our children, passing on our narrative to them. If my grandfather hadn't done that, I would not even know. I wouldn't know the history. And that's why I can stand boldly and tell people, no, stop calling me Ijebu. I am not Ijebu. I love my Ijebu brothers and sisters, but I'm not Ijebu. I'm Remo, because we come from Ile-Ife, Ife-Odaye. That's where we're from. The Ijebus claim that they are from Wadai, and that is their own.
When we break this down in terms of our history, sorry to cut you, and even from Ifa's perspective, when we look at Ife, Oduaye is 10. When we look at Oyo, how did Oyo come about? Is all this knowledge is within Ifa. We find out how, even in terms of what you're saying, which I'm proud of, but we find out the depths of the lies again. When we look at our division, I'm this, I'm that, where did it come from? A whole different episode.
Another different episode. Thank you so much. And then still on the issue of monarchy, can you please shed more light on the significance of our kings and queens? Because there was a time we had both male and female monarchs,
Exactly. Exactly.
and obas.
So,
So what really are their roles
mhm.
according to our ancient traditions and the Yoruba belief system? Like you said, we're not talking about supermarket obas now.
Yes, exactly.
With
We're
no
talking about
disrespect
real, actual
to the
crown rulers.
institution of obas, where I am also
Yeah.
from in my lineage, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we also need to get it right, so
Mm-hmm.
that what we're passing on to our children and what we're also assimilating is the truth and the correct story, how things were and should be, so that
Okay,
when we're
fair.
even talking to foreigners, we're able to defend, not even defend, just we're able to say, state categorically, this is who we are, and this is how we do our, like they say their own, they say how
Yeah,
they
of
do their
course.
thing.
They say their truth, whether it's lies, boldly. But anyway, thank you very much for that topic. Again, I always say that everything is like a huge topic because I like to break things down. So when it comes to the issue of obas and
And all
queens
this,
as
by the
well.
way, sorry, Yanifa, it's all linked with Ori, because
Yes, of course, of
definitely
course. So
there's
that
a,
this
there's
is
there's
why
something that
I'm
an
starting off by
Oba, somebody who
explaining that
becomes an Oba, there's something
you
there
don't
Ori chose.
nobody. It's just like an aruba. It's just like anything in the world that is genuine, like a virgin maiden, a king, a queen. Nobody chooses them and just says, you know what, I just like Moradeun, so yeah, she'll be the queen. It is done through very meticulous process of dafa. It is Ifa that says ẹni tó bá kàn rí,
Mhm.
ẹni tó jẹ́ olóríire, ẹni tó jẹ́ báyìí lélẹ̀, ẹni tó jẹ́ arúgbá lélẹ̀. So nobody just points to a king, a queen, a virgin maiden, and so forth, and these important things of our society just because I like you. When we look at Ile-Ife and Modakeke, the war that happened back then, which I
Mm.
won't go into too much, but I'm sure most are familiar with, that are Yoruba people. It was based on the fact that a proper dafa was done, but people wanted to supersede that for their own interest. And they saw that Ifa is the real element that does not sleep.
Mm.
Ifa kì í parọ́, bẹ́ẹ̀
Don't
lọ̀kẹ̀lẹ̀
shake
kì í
it.
ṣèké.
Mhm.
Ifa does not lie, neither does the divination chain gossip.
Mm.
It's not in the interest of what should be, but what needs to be. So when we look at a person's character and then being picked for being a king, a proper traditional crowned ruler, or a queen, or even an aruba, there are processes in tradition that they have to go through, which not only chooses them, but makes them worthy to be counted as that which they have been installed.
Mm.
So when we go to an Oba, I won't go too much into detail. Apart from being chosen as an Oba, there's an announcement, there's a whole process that follows. But then an Oba has to go to what is known as Ipebi, which is a sacred rituals and sets of rites that is done on the Oba, not only to protect them, to protect the land, to protect the constituency, but to let them know, because I don't like the word indoctrination, that's just something else. That basically gives them the facts of who they are,
Ah,
what they're about to take on,
the,
what
and
it's
the history.
about, what are the taboos, what are the do's and don'ts, what did the elements say about that town which
Mm.
you govern? What does it say about the Omode and the Agba of that Ilu, the child and the elder of that Ilu? What are the things that you as a king or queen must never be found doing at dawn or otherwise?
Mm.
What is the meaning of the morning, the afternoon, and the night?
Mm.
Because again, all the elements have a specific meaning. So a king or queen goes through all these processes. And when they go through these processes, when they're coming back out to the palace to be crowned and certain things, there are again certain rituals that need to be done. Now we found ourselves in the world of the so-called white man, which I don't know where that word is, but Black people always telling me the word of the white man. I'm still looking for it. But anyway, all due respect. So I won't get into that tonight. And they tell us that this is fetish, this is demonic, this is this. But yet still the colonial master will sell his house, his land, everything he owns to disown the fact that he feels he doesn't have a tradition, to come and learn my tradition, but tell me that my tradition a fetish, that tells me it's okay to kill my ancestors, but I just need to forgive. That tells me that I have no power, but the white man that killed my ancestors would show me the way to God. Hence why Yoruba people, we don't have the concept of God, but of Eledumare.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So again, going back to the issue of kings, queens, there are, as a traditional ruler, a process and procedure that is very meticulous that must be gone through. That at every step of the way, though the Oba or the queen has been picked by Ifa, they still have to be tested. Their character, their inner beings, their outermost thoughts, their inner thoughts that they've not told anybody. Everything is tested before they will sit on the Akbere Oba in terms of the crown, because it is said in our land, that is how powerful a king is or a queen is. So when I talk about, when you call the Oro, again, English, slightly I'll say the masquerade, the tradition of our source, our very being, of every single lineage of our chakra. When you call upon it and it does not sound, you don't hear what you expect as somebody that belongs. You go and you open Akbere Oba, which people say Akbere, that's like the seat of the Oba. It is, but it's also the crown of the Oba. That is how a traditional ruler, no one dares to pick up their crown and look inside unless you want to lose your sight.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, we're coming to the end. I'm just going to read through a few of the questions. Somebody is asking, well, one of your top fans, or our top fan actually, your dear friend Omolara, and last week Alagba Lakunle also wanted you to say the meaning of his name. So once we finish Omolara's question, you need to please respond to Olakunle.
Okay.
So Omolara is asking us, can Iyanifa explain what is alale?
Alale, some people will say to us, are our ancestors.
Okay.
Alale, some people will say, is the very essence, the metaphor of earth. For me, in my findings within Ifa studies, Alale for me is Mother Earth. Alale is the very memory. You know, sometimes when yes, but
the
it's
owner.
more than that. Yeah, let me just break it down a bit in my own understanding. So someone comes out of the coma, they've forgotten how to walk. They've forgotten how to talk. But when they're going through their therapy and their feet touches Mother Earth, there is a surgence of spirit that goes through them, from the soles of their feet to their very ori, that reminds them, this is who you are. That for me is Alale.
Okay, thank you. I hope that has answered your question, Sister Omolara. Now, our brother Olakunle Awoyale last week, and he asked twice, and then he typed, "You've forgotten about me." We have not forgotten about you, sir. His name is, I believe, Olakunle.
Okay.
He wants to know the meaning of his name.
Okay, so again, Ola for me is similar to Ajay. So people always say, Ajay, what is Ajay? Oh, well, Ajay is wealth. Ola is wealth. Ola is success. Ola is honor. Ola is accomplishments. And Ola that fills a mansion, that fills a house. Inherently, a lot of children that are called by that name come from a royal lineage, one or the other. And it's, again, we go back to the word alale. Olakunle, you must refuse to let anybody define you. Because you are a child of the earth.
Amazing. So what will be our, because the time is going out, you know, what will be our homework for next week? Do you have any homework for us? I'm so sorry, none of your students, or not, they didn't submit
I'm really
their assignments.
disappointed, though, yeah. The homework is to come and tell me why they didn't do last week's homework.
Okay. I think because
Okay,
we didn't know what Ori is. We didn't really know how to explain.
Yeah, they were like, what is she talking about? You are the person that will come and tell us. Okay.
Okay,
so I guess I'm gonna go back to Ori again because it's a big topic. So
yes, ma'am.
I would say the homework is, now that you know what Ori is, or what I has defined Ori as and told you what Ifa says Ori is, you know, you can also come and share your own research, do your own findings, what you feel Ori is. But what is the significance of Ori for you? What is your question to your Ori that you would like answered?
Okay, so viewers, I hope you got what Iyanifa said there. Do you have any questions about your own Ori, your personal questions personal to you that you want to ask
in terms of your
Iyanifa?
Ori?
We're not talking about things that are sacred to you, but you know, just general questions. Because if you have any other thing that is really, really personal, then you'd have to contact Iyanifa directly to discuss that. So can you repeat the question again, Iyanifa, so everybody can get it?
My question is that now that you guys know what the concept of Ori is, because I've just given the basic concept of Ori, not the most detailed, but just for you to, I guess I felt that you didn't answer the questions because you don't know what Ori is. So I've given the basic concept of what Ori is from my understanding and also Ifa's perspective. Now for you, what is the significance of Ori in your life? And also, what questions do you have about your Ori? That could be, for example, you know, just let me break it down because I want you guys to do this homework. That's why I'm breaking it down so much. How do I tap into my Ori? How do I know what my Ori is saying? How do I communicate and vibrate and work with my Ori? What can I ask my Ori for? So those are just some of the questions. So I expect to see your homework. Oh, please don't let what happened this week happen next week.
Thank you so much, Iyanifa. Thank you indeed. Olódùmarè á gbé yín, ẹ ṣé mo dúpẹ́. Bí mo ṣe ń pè ní gbogbo ìgbà lẹ́ ń jẹ́ mi. Olódùmarè á máa jẹ́ yín náà o.
Àṣẹ o, àṣẹ, àṣẹ, àṣẹ.
And today is one of Iyanifa's children's birthday, so we all send Iwure to your beautiful, handsome young man as he celebrates the day.
Thank you.
May he live long, may he live well, may he continue to be a pride and joy to you, his parents, and may he be a blessing to his family and his generation. Thank you. So again, I'm going to ask you to kindly just, you know, pray us out. Leave us with the worry and blessings as we do.
Okay, thank you. Ìbà Elédùmarè bá kọ́dá ìbà ṣẹ̀dá, ìbà Èṣù Ọláàlú, mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo ẹ̀yin tí ẹ ṣílẹ̀kùn lé ayé lénìí. Mo dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ gbogbo àwọn tí wọ́n tilẹ̀kùn lé ayé lénìí. Mo dúpẹ́ wípé gẹ́gẹ́ bí a ṣe ń dá ọjọ́ ní ìgbà gbogbo lọ́sẹ̀ẹ̀sẹ̀, a dá ọjọ́, ẹsẹ̀ wa pé ọjọ́ kò. A ti torí wípé agbókùn ẹnikẹ́ni a lè ṣe o, nǹkan tá fẹ́ ṣe a lè ṣe o. Ó jẹ́ ká sìnkú ọmọ, ó jẹ́ ká rógun àsúrépè lórí ara wa, ó jẹ́ ká sìnkú ọkọ, ó jẹ́ ká sìnkú aya, ó jẹ́ kẹ́nikẹ́ni kábàámọ̀ pé ọ̀sẹ̀ tó kọjá lọ lákìíní mo lọbẹ̀, ọ̀sẹ̀ kejì mo lọbẹ̀, ọ̀sẹ̀ kẹta náà kí tún wá lọ. Àwọn eléyìí gbogbo nǹkan tó ń ṣe ò dá o. Ìwọ Ifá ni ìmọ̀ ilé ayé, ìwọ ni awímọ lọ́gbọ́n, ìwọ ló jẹ́ ká mọ̀ pé babaláwo kan mọ̀ kankan, Ifá ìwọ ló mọ̀ gbogbo. Ìwọ ni ìmọ̀ àti òye tí ò ń fún wa lọ́sẹ̀ẹ̀sẹ̀. Ifá má ṣe jẹ́ kí etí wa kó di. Gbogbo tí a wá ń gbọ́ ní orí ètò yìí jẹ́ kó lè jẹ́ ìmúlò fún oníkálukú ní ọ̀nà títí ẹ̀. Má ṣe jẹ́ kẹ́nikẹ́ni kábàámọ̀. ẹni tó sùn Ifá bá wa tají sí rere gẹ́gẹ́ bí ohun tí ẹlẹ́dàá èèyàn, gẹ́gẹ́ bí ìpín tí ó yàn. Ẹni tí ò tí ì jí náà tó sì wà lójú oorun, Ifá ìwọ ló ń jó ohun gbogbo. Ifá jẹ́ kó tùbà kó túṣẹ fún wa. Àwọn ọ̀yà mi náà wá ní amúnimúyè, má ṣe jẹ́ kó máa ráyé mú iyè wa. Ẹni tí wọ́n bá mú iyè á wà nínú ayé bí ẹni tí ò sí. Ifá wá ṣàánú fún wa. Orí wa báyìí kó má ṣe padà lẹ́yìn wa. Kí orí wa kó má ṣe gbàbọ̀dè. Gbogbo ìgbà tí a bá wà ní ojúfò àbí tí a bá sùn, má ṣe jẹ́ kí àyà wa gba lápèpa. Ẹni tí a pè wá sájùlé ọ̀run, ọba ara ìká, ìwọ ni kó máa ká wọn lẹ́sẹ̀ lọ sájùlé ọ̀run. Ọ̀tá ilé, ọ̀tá òde, amọ́niṣe ní, afàìmọ́niṣe ní, aṣenibánidárò, má ṣe jẹ́ kí wọ́n borí wa. Gbogbo ibi tí ọmọ aráyé bá ti wá ní káwá ṣẹ̀sín, orí wa má ṣe gbà fún wọn o. Ṣàngó Olúkòso fún wa ní ìṣẹ́gun lórí gbogbo ọmọ aráyé. A ní ọ̀tá tá a mọ̀ ní àtọ̀tá tá a mọ̀. Wọ́n ní tí oyún inú bá ti di oyún inú ló ti di ọ̀tá. Àbọ̀sibọ́sí ìgbà tó bá wá di apá dẹsẹ̀ sínú tó di ọmọ. Níjọ́ tí a bá bímọ, olórin kan sọ wípé òbí ẹ̀ ra kẹ̀kẹ́ fún, ó ti nọ́ta. Ó lọ léèwé, ó ti lọ́ta. Ó mọṣẹ́ ẹ̀ ṣe bí iṣẹ́, ó ti lọ́ta. Gbogbo ọ̀tá tó bá wá lóhùn ó gborí wa báyìí, Ifá olókun àsọ̀rọ̀dayọ̀ máa bá wa ṣẹ́gun wọn. Má ṣe wá sọ àwa di ìkà. Gbogbo ìkà tó bá ń bẹ nígun mẹ́rin ayé, má ṣe jọ́ rí wa gbéṣe o. Torí wọ́n ní ìkà ò ní àròjinlẹ̀. Tí ìkà bá ní àròjinlẹ̀ ni kò ní ṣèkà. Torí àkọ́kọ́ jókòó, báwo ló ṣe jẹ́? Ṣé kí n ṣe? Ṣé kí n má ṣe? Tí n bá ṣe, níbo ló máa bọ́ sí? Ṣé mi náà á nípìn? Ṣáwọn ọmọ mi á nípìn? Ìtorí ẹ̀ ní ìkà ò ṣe ní àròjinlẹ̀. Tí ìkà bá ní àròjinlẹ̀ ni kò ní ṣèkà. Kí orí wa kó wá dáàbò bò wá. Elédùmarè kó dáàbò bò wá. Ifá kó dáàbò bò wá. Igba gbarúmọ̀ lójú kọ̀tún kó dáàbò bò wá. Igba gbarúmọ̀ lójú kòsì kó dáàbò bò wá. Ìwà wa kó má ṣe bàjẹ́. Nítorí wípé wọ́n ní ẹni tó bá lówó tí ò bá ní ìwà, owó olówó ló ní. Ẹni tó bá bímọ tí ò bá ní ìwà, ọmọ ọlọ́mọ ló bí. Kí ohun wa má ṣe dohun olóhun, ìwà wa kó má ṣe bàjẹ́. Kí Elédùmarè kó dáàbò bò wá nínú ọ̀sẹ̀ yìí bó ṣe ń parí lọ, kí a má ṣe bá ọ̀sẹ̀ yìí lọ. Ọ̀sẹ̀ tó ń bọ̀ kó bá wa láyé, kó bá wa láyọ̀ àti àlàáfíà. Gbogbo ohun tí gbogbo wa wá ń tò kó má ṣe rọ́. Káyé wa kó má ṣe bàjẹ́. Gbogbo èyí tí mo wí lè ní bá kí arọ̀ kó rọ̀ mọ́.
Wá.
Àbámọ̀dá kì í dá tiẹ̀ kó má ṣe o. Gbogbo ìta wí lè ní báyìí, arọ̀ ti rọ̀ mọ́. Ó ti rí bẹ́ẹ̀. Ẹ̀bẹ̀ tó àbálẹ̀ èṣù.
Àṣẹ o. Ẹ ṣeun, adúpẹ́.
Ifá lè ṣeun.
Gẹ́gẹ́ bá ti bí mo ṣe máa ń ṣe pé, well, àti ṣe ti ọ̀sẹ̀ yìí kọjá, we're done with this week's. We're looking forward to next week. The sessions get more and more interesting, and we're digging deeper and deeper. And we thank you again for always just giving us that time. I know how super busy you are back there in Nigeria. So it's like a doctor, in their clinic, and you just pull them out for an hour and a half. So I really thank you, and I thank your family. Enjoy the rest of your young man celebration today.
Thank you.
Orin náà máa tún kọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí torí alágbára ní òun fẹ́ kí n máa kọrin yẹn lọ́sẹ̀ẹ̀sẹ̀.
Yes.
Ajílòwúrọ̀ agbóhùn ẹyẹ tó ń ké, ire, 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 ẹyẹ ire, ẹyẹ olùgbàlà òjíṣẹ́ Olódùmarè, ẹyẹ olóhùn méjì tíbi tire ló ń ké, orí ìwà ò gbàbọdè o, ire ni a yàn o. Jíṣẹ́ owó, jíṣẹ́ ọmọ, jíṣẹ́ ajé o, jíṣẹ́ aya, jíṣẹ́ owó o, agbọ́ o, ire ni a kàn, àti gbóhùn ẹlẹ́dàá wa tó gbére kò wá o lọ́nà àjò ní ire, níbi iṣẹ́ òòjọ́ wa ire, àní dandan ẹlẹ́dàá wa ó gbére kò wá o lọ́nà. May we all experience and embrace goodness and more goodness every step of the way, all the days of our lives. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I see a lot of our friends have joined us from various parts of the world. I'm very grateful. I'm very thankful. I'm very joyful. Till same time next week, we want to say thank you to you all. Thank you once again, Iyanifa, Bola. Thank you.
Ifá ló ṣeun, àwọn orúmọlẹ̀ ló ṣeun. A kì í dúpẹ́ ara ẹni, Ifá ni ká fọpẹ́ fún. Ọpẹ́ àsìnlà, òun ni ká dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀.
A dúpẹ́ fún Olódùmarè. A dẹ̀ dúpẹ́ fún arábìnrin wa náà, Victoria Olabisi Obadara, that does the magic behind the scenes.
COO and Isaiah
and Isaiah, and we say happy birthday to her because yesterday was her birthday. I think April babies really rock. There's so many April babies around. Thank you so much for the great work that you do, Olabisi. We're so grateful. And till same time next week, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say continue to arise as agents of positive change. And please don't forget the homework. Let's go think more and find out more about our Ori, our chakra, our higher being, higher self, and those things that we want to also find out. God bless you. Stay well and stay safe.